Hello and welcome to another episode. Today we're going to try to prep the car so we can protect it, because now it's polyester on it and we need to sand it down and prepare it for two-component surfacer. So this is coming up on this episode.
First off, we have started with priming everything because we have sanded through a couple of areas, and also we wanted to seal off the freshly sanded filler. After that, we have covered everything with polyester filler and put on a rough coat of old base color just to have a little bit more contrast. So when we started to sand that down for extra grip and to also make the lines nice and crisp and panels straight, we had a surface control. We have also used tape to tape off the lines just to keep them crisp, because otherwise you can round them off too much and you kind of lose those body lines that you want to have. After rough sanding with blocks, doing it by hand with 240 grit paper, we have put on Mirka's Dry Coat just to kind of see what the surface is like and how are we doing with all the deeper scratches made from rougher sanding paper. This way we can control the surface finish, which is kind of needed if we don't want the surfacer to sink into those deep scratches. We have topped it off with rotary tools with 320 grit sandpapers. After that, the car has been sprayed with surfacer. We have applied 3 coats, so we had enough of the material on it to really get the panels nice and straight. We have watched the way we are applying it, because once the panel is wet we can control how the surface looks, and this is good if you are working in nice lighting conditions and also keep the garage open, because the fumes are not very healthy to breathe. After that, I have used a one-component spray can of black paint just to apply it on the areas that I am going to sand first, and those are the door jambs and the engine bay and the edges around the trunk lid. This way again we have some surface control, because when we start sanding it off, we will see once we make the surface flat, it's going to reveal a bright color from the surfacer, and we're going to remove the black paint. As long as the black paint is visible, that means that we still have low spots, but we're going to take a closer look and a deep dive into it a little bit later in the video.
Okay, so as you can see, the car is now coated. To quickly recap, as you can remember, the car was in polyester spray filler. Then we needed to block sand that down using blocks and also the orbital machine using 120, 150, up to 240 grit sandpaper. So we evened that out, put on some dry coat, covered everything so we could see what's happening with the scratches and everything. Then we performed a finer phase of sanding using 240 grit, and then wiped everything down with anti-silicone cleaner, put on some Bondo on places we need to touch up, and then wait it out so it's cured, sand it down, then put on some primer, the Standox U7540. When that was curing, we put on the surfacer using this Standox U7580. Now I had one batch in gray color and one in white, so the places you see that we touched up later on, we put on the white one. We had some misfortune on a couple of places, but doesn't matter. Blocked it down with 320 grit, put on the white stuff now, so it's going to cure. I also applied black spray paint now on the door frames and into the engine bay area, so now when this is curing, I'm going to hit it with 320 grit foam padded sandpaper, and then probably something finer, 600 or 800, so it's going to be nice and ready, so we can put on the doors and everything and put it in the other garage. So our surfacer has a little bit more time to cure, because the temperatures are pretty low even in the workshop. It was snowing outside today, so yeah, we cannot do anything outside anymore. After this will be cured, we need to even it out, and then we're pretty much ready to hit paint booth. Yeah, okay, but enough of daydreaming. Let's start sanding. Okay, so these are the kind of pads that I've been talking about. As you can see, they have this soft foam on the other side. Now you need to take this one and really just sand it down so it's smooth. But the most important thing is the finish. Now I have to bring it closer so you can kind of see what's happening when you're sanding it down, and why there is such an advantage with using let's say cheap black spray paint, or if you want to use one component on with the spray gun as well, but just so you have contrast. Okay, so this is what I've been talking about. This is the part that I lightly sanded before. Now as you can see, we still have some stuff here that we need to sand, but when you get it down, you kind of have this orange peel kind of texture, and when you sand through it, you're going to get white smooth texture. Now this is what we want, so you kind of have a visual reminder of how much you need to sand. Now what you need to be careful of is that you don't hit the edges too hard, because you're going to sand through them. And yeah, it's not rocket science, but it is a couple of reminders that you need to be mindful of. And also with the edges, so you don't have to go too crazy with it, because window seal is going to come over it, but so this is good enough. Okay, so I have cleaned off and sanded the door jambs using 320 grit paper on the foam pad. Now I have sanded through a couple of spots, so I touched those up using primer surfacer in a can. So it just sprays on. It's pretty easy to do touch-ups like this. Now we're left with these babies. Yeah, we need to sand off the entire engine base, so this is going to be a pain, but it's not hard work. It's just that it takes considerable amount of time, so it's just time consuming, but it's not that bad. You just put on some music and just go to work. Okay, so one downside of this is that we have some mist that went into it when we were spraying the outside, so now it's extra gritty, so we'll have to put some elbow grease into it so we can get it all nice and flat. So yeah, not going to be pleasant. So yesterday we have finished off the door jambs. Now today, because it's much better lighting, because it's daytime, I'm going to inspect it, touch up whatever needs to be touched up, either sand it again or maybe put on some primer surfacer and spray. Now we did both door jambs and also the trunk lid edges and the trunk lid on the inner side, so I think we're pretty good on that one. We finished it off with 800 grit, so it should be good enough for the inside because it's not all that visible, and also acrylic paint that we are most likely going to use is going to hide off some of those sanding marks anyways, but 800 grit, especially wet, is pretty low abrasive. Now what we're left is the engine bay. Now over there we have a little bit more work, just because the mist that settled in, it was super rough to go through, so we ended up going with Scotch-Brite, and then some places 240 grit, some places with 320. I'm still not done. My fingertips are already pretty hurtful because you smash into the hard edges and everything, and you're always pressing down, but that's just how it is. Today I'm going to continue with the engine bay and hopefully get it sanded with 800 grit, so that will be ready. We'll also need to do the hood on the inside, put the hood back on, and then move the car to the other garage, so the primer surfacer on the car has time to set in. There's a lot of sanding. Yeah. I think I'll need a little bit of time before we head off to any other projects that involve sanding, so yeah, just enough already. Sand out. Now the engine bay has been finished off. Dave came to help, so we have finished off wet sanding with 800 grit paper. We did the same on the inside of the hood, so this is pretty much ready. Of course it needs another wipe down before paint goes off, but this will happen with the entire car anyways. This is it for today's episode. There has been a lot of sanding. Now most of it isn't filmed because who wants to see 3 days of sanding? Yeah. Anyways, I'm glad this is done. We don't have to touch the entire engine bay again, so this is good. And see you in the next episode, hopefully with more interesting things coming up and getting this car one step closer to finish and to being painted. Take care. Bye. Yes.